Hello, social workers, mental health professionals, and change agents. Welcome to another episode of season 8 of the Social Work Rants podcast. I'm your host, Bash Moreno. Saludos a todos. Greetings, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, tapping in wherever you are watching or listening to this podcast. I appreciate all the love and support. Gracias a todos por su apoyo. You continue to follow the podcast along on Instagram at the Social Work Rants podcast. That is all one word on Facebook, aka Meta. Type in the Social Work Ranch podcast. Follow the page, like the page, and I'm still on X, still on Twitter at uh at Social Work Ranch, so you can follow along there. Even though Elon completely messed up Social Work Twitter, it's not popping like it used to be, but I'm still on it. Uh, just follow along, of course. Hit that red subscribe button on the YouTube page, and we're gonna keep trucking along and be consistent and drop these episodes off. So this episode is brought to you by Bass City Entertainment, doing business as Bash Moreno Consulting, focusing on providing financial education for Gen X people of color in the sandwich generation, providing with helping them with financial stability for themselves and their families. Go to Bass Moreno, BASMORENO.com for more information. I'm offering 15-minute financial consultations. So if you're in that sandwich generation, you trying to take care of yourself and you taking care of an elder, whether it be a auntie or mom, dad, and you got kids, you thinking about college or what they trying to do with themselves, and you trying to deal with your own finances, by all means, let's have a conversation and try to help you out. So again, that's bashmoreno.com. My guest at this time, uh, coming from Baltimore. Hello, the Charm City. Uh, School social worker. Even though I'm retired from school social work, I always want to reach out to my fellow school social workers and kind of see what is happening, and because a lot is happening, a lot that should be happening. That's that I don't feel like it's happening coming from the federal government perspective. We could talk a little bit about that. Tierra in Baltimore is a school
Yeah,
social worker at LCSW. Uh, hyphen AC. What's going on? How you
good to
doing?
see you. How are you? I'm great. Great, great, great. Thank you for having me here.
No, no. Thank you for coming on, making the time out. No, still alert or
Yes,
to be the school social worker.
yes, yes, yes.
So the whole year, I would eat dinner and just like be on the couch and just knock out. And like, oh, I'm
Yes,
tired.
yes,
So y'all lucky
indeedy.
y'all got all the episodes y'all did that the whole year. I was doing school social work, so because I was tired all day,
Yes,
every
this is not for
day.
the faint of heart.
But yeah, just we could talk about joke all day, but at the same time, school social work is like all social work jobs is hard work.
Yes.
Even though you either love it or you don't, and you love the kids and it be about the kids, but
Mm-hmm.
you gotta practice your self care and kind of make sure you. So for me, school social work, I found it like kind of in a way hard to focus on my own self care. Was always like you're always on the go and kind of like administration was like do this, and then it's like, well, wait a minute, like something's not working. Like why you acting like a pandemic did not just happen? Like kind of going back to pre-pandemic stuff, and it's like it just didn't make
Yeah.
any sense. And teachers refusing to do social emotional learning, and it's just like no, I can't.
Yeah, it can be challenging. It can be challenging.
So let people know who you are, a little about yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I am a licensed clinical social worker here from Baltimore, Maryland, born and raised. I am always I've gotten better over the years with who am I? So at my core, I'm light, I'm love. I'm flawed, I'm growing, I'm a dreamer, I'm unique, I'm innovative, and I love what I do. I love life. The hats that I wear is that I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a DSW student moving into my capstone phase. So not only am I a school social worker, I'm in school myself, working on my doctoral degree. I'm also an entrepreneur, so I'm co-owner of Keys of Hope Consultants, which is a mental health and wellness consulting agency. My business partner and I have had the business for about 3.5, 4 years now. Officially, but it's kind of work we had always been doing, but made it official. And so we do a lot of support to traditional spaces that provide mental health and wellness, but also other spaces. We know people are now profiting off of people's pain because mental health
Mhm.
is the new thing. It's sexy now.
Right.
And so we are tried and true social workers that we want to make sure if you are going to step into this world, that you're doing it in a right way with integrity and also with the skills. And so we do support other agencies. So we work with like the NFL Player Association. We've
Mm.
done stuff with Jamaica Mental Health Task Force. We've done local stuff here in Maryland. My business partner is also located in North Carolina. So we kind of go everywhere, just providing a lot of support. We also have Sanity and a Sanctuary, which specifically works with church and spiritual organizations. Again, many times spiritual spaces are the hubs of many communities. And so, again, we want to make sure that they are supported in being able to provide trauma support and grief and loss support, mental health support, wellness support. And so that's kind of what we do on that end. When I wasn't in school for myself as a DSW student, I do teach as an adjunct professor at the University of Maryland School of Social Work. What else do I do? Yeah, consult, speak, try to live life, try to maintain. Trained in a couple of different things. Again, trauma, restorative practices trainer, also youth mental health first aid trainer. So again, like I said, my world can sometimes be as busy as I need it to be, but self care is also at the core of what I do. How it's a part of my superpower is how I sustain. And so I'm big on taking care of myself because again, I can't pour into this world without
Mhm.
first pouring for myself. And then I like to pour, I like to extend myself from overflow. And again, it came from 23 years of being in this business, that I've learned that. I didn't always start off like that. I was, a lot of my friends call me the super social worker. Again, because I truly love what I do. I think I was born to do this work. But at the same time, over time, I've just learned how to do it more efficiently, more sustainable, so I'm not burnt out. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Where do you find the energy to do all that?
Again, I say I'm strategic with my yes and I'm strong with my no. Me and my business partner are very aligned in that way that we don't say yes to every opportunity. We believe that God has blessed people to do the things that we do as well. And so if it's for us, it's for us. If it's not, or if it's not the time, I'm definitely big on putting something in a parking lot and just know that it is from if it is for me to do or be engaged in, it will circle back. But yeah, I prioritize, like I said, self care, soul care. Not just self care. I don't believe in just all, taking a shower, bubbles, but truly, I'm self reflective from the time I open my eyes to the time I go to sleep. Checking in, and my self care looks different. Sometimes it's listening to some Knuck If You Buck. Sometimes a little Kirk Franklin. Sometimes I'm taking some deep breaths. Sometimes I'm reading. Like I said, I am spiritual. So I may read a Bible verse. It may be times that I can go travel and things. So I'm just constantly, literally self-reflective 24 hours a day, figuring out what I need again to be safe, sustainable. And like I said, I'm good with saying no these days. It took a long time to do because again, as social workers, I think people who are natural social workers. So literally, I think from a child, I was born to serve. I've always been the nice kid. I've always got the awards at school for being, the nicest person, the kind award, the of service award. So
Mhm.
in me, I think that is a part of my nature. But again, as you mature, you burn out pretty quickly
Yeah.
through this field. You kind of learn, better ways and better practices. And so, like I said, I'm definitely big on prioritizing self care, and even more now after the pandemic. 'Cause it's been rough in these school streets sometimes.
Which is a perfect segue. Like I said, I really dug deep that first year after
Mhm.
when the kids first came back that first year, then it was just beyond rough.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing kid, we talking about kindergartners, first graders,
Mm-hmm.
flipping chairs, flipping tables, just because they see a piece of paper and a pencil on their desk,
Mm-hmm.
like the quote unquote to do now, and it's like already like the kids literally just walked in, they had their breakfast, and it's like already like get the walkie talkie, like go to such and such classroom, somebody's acting up, and it's like the day literally just started. We barely said the Pledge of Allegiance. I gotta go to the, so it's great. Like, and then talking to other social workers, school social workers that I've had on the podcast, it's like things haven't gotten much better. What has been your experience
Mm-hmm.
at least post pandemic? I definitely want to talk about
So
during
I'll
pandemic,
say,
but
yeah.
post.
So post pandemic, and even during, so for me, again, I was a social worker, a school social worker, like decades ago. I left, got to do a bunch of other different things, and then kind of transitioned like in the last 3 years into school social work again. But for me, at the core of everything I do, social work is all around relationships and connections. And so that has really been helpful for me post pandemic, because even throughout the pandemic, I was really big on still making those connections with my staff, with students, with families, so that when we did transition back, it was rough, but it wasn't as rough as maybe some people experienced, because I had already started kind of building the infrastructure
Mm,
or a system, putting a system in place so that when we came back, we were prepared. And I mean, we, as in the team of teachers, like I really worked hard and really strengthened my relationships with them, because they're the ones who I need to kind of help me with this work. Like I know that I cannot do this heavy lift of being a school social worker alone. And so making sure I had a really good relationship with my principal, our leadership, like I said, our teachers. Some was a struggle because again, everyone don't necessarily buy into kind of
mm-hmm.
how we operate as social workers, especially when it comes to social emotional learning, mental health and wellness, like all those things. So it was really key for me to build relationships with them to just trust me. And sometimes you may trust me, and again, like Miss Sierra, I really don't get what you're doing or why are we doing it, but because I trust you, because I trust what you do as a professional, I'm going to go with it. So that has been helpful in at least creating some foundation of stability when we came back. Of course, there were still a bunch of students and even adults and faculty. I mean, we all
Mm,
just went through a pandemic. We went through something new, and then who knows everything Miss Tierra don't know that happened behind closed doors in
mm,
households with staff and children.
right.
And so really taking the time to educate, like I said, my staff. Um, I like to set people up for success. So modeling what this looks like, in real time in the classroom. But again, we do definitely still are truly seeing some of the residual effects of the pandemic. So again, there are a lot of students who have difficulties, regulating their bodies,
Mm,
regulating their emotions, and so just really making sure that they're supported and safe and really defining what safety means beyond physical safety but mental safety. But we do have a lot of parents who are still kind of recovering from that point. And again, even like I said, staff are still recovering from that point. And so making sure that people are just a little bit more patient, we're leading with empathy. Again, making sure professional development. And like I said, I've been able to create a space for myself as a school social worker that I'm not just your traditional social worker. Like I'm not just tied to IEPs. You're not just going to stick me at the 504 chair. I am a true clinician. That's what I went to school for. That's what I do. And just really setting the tone for this is how I need people to see me, and that's how I'm going to lead. And I've even, like I said, gotten better with, asking for forgiveness opposed to permission when it comes to the health and well-being and what's right for children in the communities of where I serve. And so again, sometimes pushing the envelope. I always tell people I'm the social worker that people love to have to their schools, but sometimes you might not like me because again, I am a big advocate for making sure our children and our families get what they need. And sometimes again, it may be pushback, but again, it's for a greater purpose. And so yeah, that's kind of where we are, especially at my school. But I will say in other schools, we definitely are seeing a lot of violence, a lot of depression. Unfortunately, sometimes I do serve on a crisis team for Baltimore City Public Schools. We definitely have students who unfortunately have died by suicide. Young people, not just the older teens, but young people. Even at my school, there are definitely a lot of students who anxiety is up, depression is up. We're definitely starting to see a lot of students who are just stressed, toxic stress from just whatever is going on in the background of their families, witnessing domestic violence. So all of these things, and of course, they bring them to the school where,
Mhm.
we spend probably what the most time with them, 8 to 9 hours with them.
Right.
And so they're showing up as themselves, they're showing up with whatever they're bringing in. And like I tell people, all households aren't created equal, which means basically, children are coming in with all different type of blueprints of how to manage emotions. And oftentimes how they do that is modeled by the adults in their lives. And so we as a school, we can kind of create a space where we model something different. Because again, I don't know why children have to sometimes use certain things or certain methods to manage what's going on on the outside of the school. But we can create a safe space where again they can come, however they show up, but also model how do we work through that? How do we express our feelings? How do we not punish them for having a bad day? How many adults come in the building with a bad day?
Exactly.
Had the most tantrums. I've seen some colleagues, tantrum. And I'm talking them off of edge, and again, in the most empathetic way. So if we can model that towards each other, we have to model that to the children who don't get to call out. They don't get to use their PTO time.
Mhm.
They don't get to drink a cup of coffee to get themselves together. They don't get to say, "Hey, talk to me in 15." They don't get to do any of the things that adults typically sometimes get to utilize. And so again, creating these safe spaces, because again, we are seeing an increase in mental health, concerns in general. And not necessarily everything leading to like a diagnosis or they need an IEP, but just in general, like we are all still recovering. We're all still trying to make sense of things.
Mhm.
And again, we all aren't necessarily talking about things that we experienced during that time. And so just yeah, that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
you said a whole lot there, and it, it's just wow, it's just a whole lot, and yeah, like people are struggling day in day out. We're not, like you said, we're just now seeing the beginnings of the after effects of
Mm-hmm.
of of the pandemic. Kind of just in the country in general. So you imagine just like a small aspect of a school, which is so important, for kids. We got
Mm-hmm.
even like the little ones who are probably now second, third grade, and
Mm-hmm.
now during COVID, probably didn't even have access to preschools because like everything was
Yeah.
closed. So now their first aspects of school was kindergarten for them, and
Mm-hmm.
they probably was just raised on the iPad all day
Yep.
every day, and then come to
YouTube.
school,
Uh-huh.
just YouTube TV, or you know and kind of like go to school and like they gotta open a notebook, be like, what's that? Like,
Yeah.
or
And
piece of paper
I
doing
call it,
work.
it's like
So
arrested development almost, because I said they unfortunately and literally I have a class band of children. And I wrap myself around every class, but that particular class, to your point, they struggled. And again, they're not necessarily struggling like they're like tossing tables or anything,
mm,
but just how to build relationships,
mm,
how to problem solve in many ways. And again, I try to, help support teachers when they talk about like what children should be doing development. I mean, they're developmentally appropriate, but sometimes people say, oh, they're a little bit immature. Well, they're children, but
right.
at the same time, there are things that maybe they could or should be doing developmentally based on evidence anyway, that a 7-year-old or 8-year-old should be doing, maybe had they had some of those initial skills, you know.
Mm,
And so it's even just working through those things, just basic things, how to line up, how to stand up, how to walk down a hallway. And again, sometimes people just take for granted that that's something that happens naturally. And I'm like, no, we have to have like practice sessions. So in the beginning of the school year, I was supporting some of my teachers. Like we would have like turn on some music and we're gonna, practice how do we stand up, practice how do we walk down the hall, practice
mm.
how do we transition. Transitions are
Yeah,
difficult
transition exactly.
because again, if you were sitting at home and at my school we didn't necessarily make it mandatory that the cameras was on. We preferred that they were on, but I also advocated that again, we're going into people's spaces, and every child's space may not be necessarily conducive for camera every day. And so again, sometimes who knows what they were doing? It wasn't a
Mm,
regular routine. And so again, them just understanding basic things of how do you be a student was missed for that class.
mm,
And we even saw that with our middle school students. During the time our fifth graders also transitioned to middle school. I work at an elementary middle school.
mm,
So they also had a difficult time because by the time they came into school, they were seventh graders and they
mm.
struggled. Seventh grade, I feel like middle school is always a struggle anyway,
Yeah,
just in general. But they truly struggled because, again, they went from being fifth graders who, were telling them what to do. It's just different in elementary school. Whereas
mm-hmm.
middle school, there's a different expectation of you should be
Yes,
organized and you should be doing this and that. And they did not have that skill set. And I would imagine the same thing happened from those students who went from middle school and then all of a sudden you're in high school
right,
post pandemic. And again, just those skills that you may have developed just were missing and they're gone. And unfortunately, if you don't have people within the school building, whether it's people like myself or just caring people,
right,
um, those children can either be given consequences because again
mm,
now they're frustrated so they're acting out, or they're just over not seeing, because we do have students who are very quiet, who again we know the squeaky wheels always get the most energy, whereas some of those students who aren't squeaky wheels but are struggling, and so I just feel bad for many students. I'm hopeful for them, but I also know there's a big struggle, even just on that level of those transitions, those natural transitions that just didn't
right,
happen for them.
right. Of course. Like I said, like little kids literally miss like 2 whole years in those transition. We'll talk about kids going into kindergarten for their first school experience, and like you mentioned, going from elementary school to middle school. That's a big jump, and you possibly
Mm-hmm.
going from fifth grade to like they seventh grade. And I know me growing up, seventh grade, and even with my kids now, like seventh grade is like a big year
Mm-hmm.
that you're already planning, or at least the beginnings of like high school
High
planning, and they look
school.
at seventh grade grades, and if your
Hmm.
grades are not where they need to be,
Yep.
you know,
Test scores, like
cause
all
yeah,
of those things. And so that class, like, we definitely had to wrap around that particular class. Unfortunately, they graduated, they did, but it was a struggle. It was definitely a struggle. But again, we definitely wrapped around that class. And again, I was the biggest advocate, like, we need to do this, we need to do that.
yeah,
Because again, I just saw that, I saw that happening as a behavior specialist. So yeah.
and even like maybe there's a lot of these kids probably who knows what their home life is, that the only person that can get those type of skills is yourself or support staff
Hmm.
at the school. So that
Yeah.
plays a huge part as well.
Mhm. Yep. And that's what I tell people. Like, I mean, and there's I know quite a few things about many of my children. But there's probably a lot of things that I don't know. And like I said, some, adverse childhood experiences are real. And I don't know if you know Baltimore, many people are familiar with Baltimore, but we actually were able to pass a trauma informed care legislation bill
Mm,
based off of some research that supported that our city, with just within our city, there's a high level of trauma and adverse childhood experiences that impact the children and the families that reside here. So again, it is very real, and I can imagine for many different schools. And trauma and adverse childhood experiences, of course, are sometimes heightened and exacerbated because of, inequities and things. But again, the people with money, experience these things, the people
Right.
who, are on the other side. And so again, it's a very real thing that definitely impacts children. It impacts school systems. It impacts us, again, secondary trauma. Because again, we're helping children to navigate these things. And I know last year a student shared a situation with me that was happening. I didn't even have an answer. Not that I'm supposed to have an answer, but
Mm,
literally I didn't have an answer. So what I share with people, sometimes my skill that I'm using is literally just to help children navigate or survive their situations.
mm,
Um, because again, sometimes it's not a situation that's such an easy answer. Like, oh,
right.
just go home and tell your mom, she needs to stop dealing with that guy she's dealing with. If they're dependent on that guy for their food and their
Mm,
finances and those types of things. And adults are adults.
right.
So how do we equip children even in those spaces to find ways to cope, whether it's through music, whether it's through connecting, whether it's, if they can be outside of the home and involved in positive things, being a positive support at the school, because that's also some of the work, that no, I can't necessarily fix that situation, but I
Mm.
can give you some tools to help you to navigate it as best as you can emotionally until, things can happen.
Now the legislation that you just talked about, was that
Mm-hmm.
done through the mayor, or that was a combination between like the mayor and the governor? Like what? Tell a little bit
I
about that.
believe at the time, it was a combination of many different people that were involved. Was maybe Scott in there at the time? I can't remember because he transitioned from like the city council president, so I can't remember exactly the dates, but he was kind of, I'm sure, involved in it. With a couple of other political people here, also working with like our school district. There were a lot of different entities and stakeholders involved in that push. I know they definitely were in our schools. I remember having a meeting with Zeke Cohen. He's another figure here who was really on top of like pushing that bill, and collaborating with students. So actually, students and youth from Baltimore were also a part of that family. So I do know that they were. It was a very big collaborative effort. And what I did appreciate about it, which I'm also, always giving a side eye when people don't
Mm,
do this, is make sure that all stakeholders are involved. And we can't pick and choose who a stakeholder is. So, like I
right,
said,
of
youth
course.
were involved, schools were involved, communities were involved, and then others were also involved to make sure that it was pushed.
No, that's great. I know I've been to Baltimore a few times, and just kind of have other social workers I've interviewed who work and live in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's an interesting time that's happening within the city. I mean, obviously there's crime everywhere. I literally
Yeah.
had like the SWAT team in my neighborhood like this week of this recording for something that went down with one of my neighbors. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, and I live in a nice quiet neighborhood, so things can happen like
Yep.
pop off anywhere. But you know, people will think of Baltimore. People think of like the show The Wire, and
The Wire. Yes.
I had a friend of mine from high school who used to be a police officer in Baltimore. Is like, you seen the show The Wire? It's like exactly like that. So it's like, um,
No.
um, so and then now with gentrification's like everywhere now, and I know Baltimore's been having like a housing lottery for residents. You gotta have like 10 years of
Mm-hmm.
residency, so things are changing. Or like there are certain blocks within Baltimore is like really super gentrified, and then you go a couple blocks within the same neighborhood, and it's
Yep.
just smack down in the hood. So it's just interesting, like
Yep.
driving by, even like everybody knows John Hopkins,
Mm-hmm.
the big hospital, but then literally like around the corner is the hospital's literally right smack down in the hood. So it's
Yep.
like, and then of course you got like Ravens and the Orioles and like the aquarium and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff by the water, and they're fixing up the pier so that you want to go
Yep.
on a cruise. You don't gotta go, Yeah, you're on the northeast. You ain't got
Yes.
all the way
Mm-hmm.
to New York or New Jersey to get on a
To
cruise
get
ship.
on. Yep.
You could go right to Baltimore and get on a
Yep.
cruise ship. So it's just a lot happening within the city. Positive stuff. There's not just
And
negative.
it
People want to
is.
focus on the negative things, but there's some stuff, positive stuff that is happening.
And that's what I tell people because, again, of course, everyone again goes to the wire, especially as I travel as a consultant and things like that. And me and my business partner, like, we're from Baltimore, like, where the wire? Yes, yes, but it's so much more. And again, definitely there's a lot of things happening. That definitely needs a lot of attention. But there are definitely also a lot of people who are doing some like the boots on the ground work.
Mhm.
And again, I believe in transformative work opposed to transactional work. Transactional work is needed, yes, give out some coats, give out some pencils and book bags. But the true transformative work is really that boots on the ground, making those connections, being in the community. Again, looking at systems, truly dismantling them, not just
Mhm.
talking about dismantling them. And again, that we definitely do have people here who are really trying their best. In the midst of everything else that's going on, crime is up, especially juvenile crime is a big thing that's being talked about. And it is definitely happened with the car theft. I'm assuming this is happening in many cities. When I do watch some of the other news networks. But it's definitely a big thing here, and a lot of our juveniles are a part of that.
Mhm.
And so again, there are definitely a lot of people like myself and others who are definitely trying to be in the midst not only of those conversations, but some of the actual work that needs to be done. For me, I definitely believe that much of it is rooted in trauma, and that's a discussion that sometimes people don't want to talk about. Again, and even though our city has been deemed and we have the legislation and there are things in place that most of the entities here, everyone needs to be trained in trauma, but the application of it
Mhm.
still has some work, because again, we can have all the knowledge we want about how trauma impacts people, but if we aren't actually able to apply it in the work that we do, just down to how we connect with people, how we connect with youth, how
Mhm.
we connect with their families, and even just stakeholders working together. Many cities like Baltimore, and I'm sure other spaces, there's a lot of great work, but it's also done in silos.
Yeah.
And so again, until we and include myself, because I'm a part of the we just as a social worker here, until we come together to truly, get a hold of this thing, it'll only kind of, make movement on the surface just a little bit. But this is some deep rooted stuff, as you talked about gentrification here. We have redlining, the
Mhm.
history of redlining. Again, when we talk about again our school system, which again I work for our school system, but there are flaws, and we have to have some true program evaluation, figure out what's working, what's not working. Again, why are we still doing things that maybe served the purpose in the past? Maybe it didn't, but is it effective now for what we see? Is it innovative? Are we making movement? What are the outcomes? All of
Yeah.
those different things. And so, like I said, yes, there are definitely a lot of challenges, but there's some work being done, but there's definitely more work to be done. So yeah, that's my kind of
Wh-
2 cents on that.
Which which leads me to part of one of my biggest frustrations with the Biden administration, and the Department of Education. By all means, work on the student loans, please. But it seems like that's, at least for the 4 years, that's all that's been publicly like talked about, and it's
Hmm.
like, we just had obviously had a pandemic. We had a pretty much global PTSD
Hmm.
from
Yes.
pandemic, um, and obviously the talk of social emotional learning, that's been on a local level, but nothing I've
Yeah.
seen has come
Hmm.
from like a federal policy being placed. Like there's no talk of that. If there's talk, the messaging has been extremely poor.
Hmm.
So as you say, like, all these policies and stuff, like what's working, what was not working, and I seen firsthand some, like, the schools that I worked in. I worked at multiple schools at
Hmm.
other brief time. I was like, why are we doing stuff like it? like pandemic never happened. It's like
Yeah.
like if I want my kid, I barely got space to work in, and if I don't, my kid needs to burn some energy off, we gonna play some basketball, and like that's what the kid wants to do. Like let trying to meet the kid where he's at. He just needs to burn off some energy. He might
Yeah.
have enough. Okay, let's stop now. Now you go. Let's go get some work done, and it's like
Hmm.
or whatever. It came to a point where like these kids had all this energy and it's like almost like rewarding bad behavior because
Yeah.
it's like they're eloping from class. So like I guess we gotta go outside, burn some of this energy off
Yep.
because we need to. You got too much energy to be running around and chasing you. Like we in some like no no, we're not running and trying to win a gold medal and
Hmm.
running track or whatever. Like we gotta get back to class, but I just it's just a lot. And the school for me, like just it just didn't make sense. Like
Hmm.
of course having like the old school teachers that been there, they're like social
Yeah.
emotional learning. Like what's that? They need to
What's
like
that, right?
suck suck it up and like do the work
Basically.
and like
And that's why I said, for me, and again, I'm not new to this, I'm true to this, is what I say. And so for me, I've always just operated a strengths based with everybody. Um, and I knew for a fact coming back into the schools, that I had to have that relationship with those teachers. And again, some teachers are team SEL, team mental health. Some of them are my champions. And then I have some teachers who still are, like you said, to your point, are very old school. And I get that. And so again, it's for me to have been like very strategic in how do I even get them a little bit on board. And that's been truly helpful. A lot of school social workers that I sometimes do professional development and trainings for. That's one of the key things I train on, is how do we use our transformative leadership skills? Because again, that's something that's truly not taught in our schooling, like at all. I
right.
mean, even as I teach as an adjunct professor, I teach advanced clinical practices classes, but I'm pouring into them that again, and wherever you are, whether it's a school social work, if you're working in a hospital, if whatever system, because we always working in a system, unless
Mm,
you work for yourself, but even for yourself, sometimes you're in the
yeah.
system. But when you're working for these large systems, again, don't just allow people to pigeonhole you or put a glass ceiling on what they believe social work are. Yes, true. Some of us do work in child welfare, but we're not just only the people who take children away
Hmm.
or deal with SNAP benefits and those things. Yes, that is true. And also, we have all these other skills. We're good with systems. We're great with visionary. We're great with coming up with plans, strategic planning. Like all of these different skills are needed within the school space, and we can utilize these things. And don't be afraid to do that, because again, those are going to be the things that create these cultures and climates that are safe for everybody. We want to, like, one of the things I try to input at my school. I'm the lead of our whole child team. We have a whole child team, but
Mm.
everybody's a part of it, because again, we're not just going to put this heavy load on the social worker.
Exactly.
Everybody is responsible for these children in this building. So part of my team is the usual smusual. So myself, the school psychologist, but there are a couple of teachers involved. I have an ed associate who's slash the assistant principal. They're involved. I have a person who's just a direct service worker in the building. Sometimes they're the aide, sometimes they're doing
Mm.
recess. They're part of the whole child team. I have a parent who comes into the whole child team every once in a while. um Again, because we're collaborating, it's all hands on deck at my school.
That's
And
great.
that's, yeah, and I push that. And like I said, again, you have to build those relationships to be
Mm.
able to push it. But once I was able to do that, there's a true understanding that we're not just going to box me into a box. But then also, like I said, we are all responsible for these children 8 or 9 hours a day. And so we all need to be a part of the table and a conversation of how we're going to support them. Um, and making sure that we all play a part in it, because again, yeah, if I'm just the only one doing it, then of course nobody, they're like, oh, Miss Tierra, call Miss Tierra, call Miss Tierra. No, we're not going to call Miss Tierra, because Miss Tierra may be busy or maybe with another student. And
Mm.
so again, I had to figure out, how do I equip the people around me to not be a clinical social worker, because of course they can't do everything that I do, but you can be empathetic. You
Mm-hmm.
can have emotional intelligence. You can teach children how to problem solve. You can be a listening ear, because sometimes children don't even want to hear what you have to say. They just want to be heard. And that's
Right.
okay, because once we hear them, then they're willing to hear us. And so just teaching them just the basics of being a human is what I tell people. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not even teaching you all my clinical social work skills, and I do have a lot of those, but a lot of it is just how do we be a good human to children, to each other, to the families, so that when people are dysregulated, when they are in crisis, when things are happening in the background, when we're all going through a pandemic, how are we treating each other and being there for each other and creating a space of safety? And then if you need Miss Tierra to bring in a sprinkle of the clinical, of course I will. But we can all step up and be humans, and I make sure that my staff and my team members understand that no, it's not a Miss Tierra thing. It's an our thing. It's an
Right.
our thing.
No, I like that, and you're right. Just being the basics of being a good human being is like just as simple as good morning and how you doing, and like,
Yeah,
or just listening. You could be like, "Is this kid talk about damn Roblox one more time?" But you got to suck it up and just listen to
yeah,
or you might learn something. Like, I got kids too. Like, oh, what are the
yeah.
Roblox, and kind of like, all right, they
I
kind of like,
learned so much. When I say literally, and like I said, I do talk about, of course, some of the not so great things of life. But to your point, like some of like I have an open door policy, even where my office is positioned. I had an opportunity to be what I call a C-suite of the school, which was behind a closed door and you buzzed in. Or I had an office that's my office is literally between the gym and a cafeteria. So literally all day there's noise. However, they can access me because I wanted to break the stigma of in order to get help, you got to jump through so many different doors. So
mm,
my door is literally accessible, but then also it's literally open unless I'm talking to someone. And literally, sometimes it's us talking about roadblocks, birthday celebrations. Sometimes they come in color. I keep juices and berries for some of my older children. Sometimes their hair not right. And again, if you don't come how you feel you need
mm,
to come, that can set your whole day off. So I got a pile of juices and berries if you need to get your hair right. I got earring studs. I know I had some of my young ladies come in. Miss Sierra, missing an earring. My day not right. All right. Well, I got a pack of studs for them. I got deodorant, snacks, cookies. Again, we sometimes play games. I have hula hoops. Miss Sierra loves the hula hoop. So
mm,
sometimes we in there hula hooping and chit chatting. I do cookies and combos. Sometimes children just need a snack. All right, let's eat some
mm,
cookies and let's chat it up. And so again, the work that we do, like I said, isn't always around a crisis, but sometimes it is just being that, sometimes they just want to chit chat. Because even though sometimes with those type of parents, I have a lot of parents who just work really hard. And so sometimes they just don't have the time to
mm,
just kick back and chew the fat because
right.
again, they're just trying to take care of their home. And so by the time their children do get home, it probably is time to eat, go to
Mm,
bed, maybe do some homework, and then you're starting back over. And so again, even just being an outlet for children just to come and chit chat can turn their day all the way around. And even in the middle of the day, sometimes children just need that just to be able to come. Like I said, adults sometimes drink coffee. Well, for children, sometimes we are the coffee. Sometimes
mm,
we are that cup that they need to be filled, and who can fill them and give them the energy and the love or whatever coffee do for people, you
right.
know. And being that throughout the day, whatever that may look like. And like I said, sometimes it's roadblocks, sometimes it's a crisis, sometimes it's both, you know
Mm,
but just being at that space for them and also for colleagues. My colleagues sometimes come and color. I have a coloring station. And sometimes they're sitting in there coloring or playing with a Rubik's Cube or playing with kinetic sand. And again, just again, because I need them to also be in a good space because their energy feeds off into that classroom. It
no, of
feeds off
course.
into our children.
Mm,
And so again, if they're not right, then the children are not going to be right. So again, having a space. And even for me, I'm very clear about my role, but I'm also hands-on. So if a teacher tags me in like a WWE fighter, like, hey, it's getting too much in here. I've sat in classes and I've said, go to your car for 30 minutes. I got this. And again, I'm not a traditional teacher, but I can hold down some ABCs and one, two, threes, or
Mm,
do some brain breaks, or come in and just do some SEO while that teacher is taking time to get what they need. Or, again, I'm not opposed to coming into a classroom and passing out papers. Sometimes just the presence of having someone there,
mm,
for the teacher and the student sometimes makes a difference. Um, and so, yeah, you kind of have to work this thing. If you're going to be a school social worker, you kind of have to strategically figure out the space that you're in and how you can not only have an impact on the children, but also the adults. Because, like I said, we need those adults to kind of be able to stand in a gap, especially when one person, one social worker who's responsible for 180 something children, 300 something children,
mm.
500 something children, depending upon your district and where you are. And it's impossible for one person to be able to do that. But if we are equipping people who are in the leaders of the classroom, we're equipping them, we're collaborating with them, we're creating champions within them, then it kind of helps the school day go better. Is it perfect? No. Are there days when I want to go work at Target, use my social work skills there? Absolutely. I just want to greet and collect the carts and be very kind to people. And there are days when it's like that, but there are a little less days of those and more days where I still can get up and find joy and find a way to show up how I need to be.
Or you look at your phone and figure out when the next school holiday is.
Oh, I'm on top of that. Now that's one thing. I told you self-care is my biggest thing. So I already know. We actually at my school I work at a school that's all year round.
Mm,
So we go through July opposed to a traditional most schools here in June. And so I go to mid-July. However, we have breaks throughout the year, which is cool. And so for like our winter break, we get 2 weeks off. Like every month we have a break except for the month of March, which is a weird I think month in general. But outside of that, at least once a month, I'm off for about a week or so. So that also helps with like just being able to manage something to look forward to. Again,
mm.
you come off one break, you're like, all right, 40 more days to go to the next one. And again, it's something to look forward to, and it's
Exactly.
also something to help encourage my colleagues because sometimes, again, it's like, all right, y'all, 2 more weeks to go, 7 more days to go,
Exactly.
24 hours to go. And those things help too. So yes, the school schedule can be the bomb schedule, especially for self-care and just kind of
Mm.
managing your burnout.
No, no, yeah, absolutely, and especially yourself. You got a business too. You can plan out stuff for your business on
Absolutely.
those
So
days
yep.
off. So,
And a lot of what I get to do. And again, because my schedule is very unique, I am able to travel. Like I said, my business partner is in North Carolina, so sometimes we're back and forth, or sometimes we're meeting up and traveling together. So San Antonio or wherever it may be. Sometimes we're able to do that, and again, we can plan in a way because I know for sure I can be off. Where she has a little bit more flexibility, but it definitely helps with that. And then also the breaks, the summer breaks and those things, and again, just taking time to just, be, how often
mm,
do you just get to be as a social worker?
mm.
And that's what I said when I introduced myself, I'm becoming better practice at that because again, I do these things, but at my core, I also give myself time and space to connect back to who I truly am. Because that also helps me to again do all these things. So yeah.
No, I love that. Where can people reach out to you?
So they can find me on Instagram, Tierra_Simone. Also Keys of Hope Consultants on Instagram. LinkedIn, Tierra Sidnor Diggs. I think my name shows up on my little screen right here. And then on Facebook, I am Tierra, the Savvy Soul Social Worker. I have my little t-shirt on, but I am the Savvy Soul Social Worker. Again, I don't like for people to box me in or me to be boxed in. So yeah, that's how they can find me. That is who I am. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Keep up the great work. And
Thank you for having this space, for people to understand, that social work just isn't one little thing that most people believe we are. So thank you for just creating an opportunity for people to share and other social workers to know that again, there's so many things you can do. We don't just, do the traditional things. We can be so many things and more.
no, absolutely, it's so important just branch out, do different things, or try different things. If you
Yep.
don't like it, all right, off to the next thing, because
Yep.
we had those basic skills that we learned in grad school, and just life and living and those
Yep.
transferable skills and do other things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And make money. Don't let
Yes,
people think we don't
absolutely.
make money.
Yes,
I mean, I'm not
yes.
balling yet, but I do pretty well. The lights
You
are still
you
on.
don't
The lights
you
are
don't
still on.
you don't got Lamar's money yet.
No, not yet. I'm working and I'm working on it.
You're not part of that $1 billion deal that the selling of the Orioles.
I saw that there's a lot of people. I said, will they take my $5? Look, can I put $5 in? Get a little something. But yeah, not yet. But that is a goal. That is a goal. Yep.